Let's speak to Sun columnist Ross Clark on this confusing picture. Good afternoon to you, Ross. I was saying a little earlier, I mean, whatever people say about Donald Trump, you know, America spotted all sorts of these curious, you know, money being wasted in area, immigration not being addressed, net zero becoming a religion, and they had a thirst and an appetite for someone to come in and say, I'm as mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore, I'm sorting this nonsense out. Now, it's early days for Donald Trump. The initial signs are good if you're a Trump supporter. He's doing what he said he would do. It's something like we're living in an upside down world. We kind of need not just a tinkering on this, we need a seismic overhaul of how we do welfare in this country. Would that be fair?
Yes, yes. I mean, the tragedy is that the Conservative Lib Dem coalition between 2010 and 2015 did actually tackle benefits spending, and the benefits bill fell. A number of people on benefits fell steadily, out of work benefits, disability benefits. You know, the big promise was going to be we were going to make work pay. But then something strange happened about 2016, 2017, before the pandemic, by the way. Numbers started to creep up again, and the Tories just completely lost any control of benefit spending. And Labour, as we know, hasn't really done very much in its first 9 months to change that. I mean, clearly now Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and Wes Streeting and also Liz Kendall, put in a word for her, they do understand that this benefits bill is absolutely out of control. You know, besides the no doubt genuine claimants, there are people just completely taking the mickey, as you intimated with your guy with the with his whatever it was. But you know, we all have those tales. I mean, a few years ago, I was handling throwing the welly competition at the village fair, and this one guy came along and chucked it 10 meters further than anybody else and did it every year. And I ended up asking, well, what do you do for a living? You must be, you know, do you sort of got some job which builds up your muscles? And he said, oh no, actually I'm out of work, I've got ME, I'm signed off on the sick. And you saw completely ridiculous.
The SE Wellywanger.
Yeah, people taking the mickey in this way. But the trouble is, while Keir Starmer and so on seem to understand this and seem to have an appetite now for reforming the system, the Labour MPs, who of course they require to get through their legislation through the Commons, there's far too many of them seem to think it is an outrage ever to cut somebody's benefits. You know, they have this sort of emotional sort of attachment to the benefit system, and they will never ever vote for any kind of benefit to be cut, however much the evidence is presented to them that you know, it's being claimed unfairly.
And I was looking at these numbers. I mean, certainly if you look at foreign nationals, and I know the left-wing meerkats sort of bob their heads up at this point and go, he's talking about foreigners, this is going to be a very ugly conversation. I mean, this is just a reality. We're all adults in the room. We should be able to have these challenging chats. But 800,000 foreign nationals are expected to receive indefinite leave to remain. So this is on top of what we've already got. Now, I don't know. Firstly, I don't know why 800,000, nearly 1 million people would be given indefinite leave to remain. That seems extraordinary to me. But let's assume every one of them is, you know, a legitimate case and there's nothing we can do about it. And there's 800,000 people going to be added to the list. I mean, I don't imagine they're all rocket scientists. I don't imagine these are people that are going to be earning six-figure salaries anytime soon. They're likely to be in lower-paid jobs, and those lower-paid jobs, of course, require some kind of top-up to them. Hence the universal credit system kicks in. So they might be working, which is always the argument that's thrown back at you. Oh, no, these are people that are working. They're not spongers. They're working. It's like, well, yeah, but the point is should these people be here in the first place if their disposition is so bad that they cannot find themselves in a job that doesn't require topping up by the taxpayer?
Yeah, well, I mean, the government was trying to address this, wasn't it? I mean, when we left the European Union, we said we were going to have control over our migration system again. We're going to let in the rocket scientists, but we weren't going to let in the benefit claimants. And the previous government set this minimum salary threshold for anybody who wanted to come to Britain. It was then raised, but then, you know, that becomes irrelevant when it comes to things like asylum cases, where I mean, you don't need any income or potential to earn any income to, you know, be able to remain in the country under asylum laws. And, you know, we have sort of Albanian gangsters, don't we, who just claim the right to stay in Britain under the, you know, they would infringe their right to a family life if we deported them. And so we've got this sort of whole underclass of people who are, you know, well under the sort of salary threshold that the government set, and you know, they end up on benefits, and we all end up paying for that.
Or maybe though, to tie in the other story, Ross, maybe these people are doing, you know, although they might be minimum wage jobs, they're the jobs that some of our youngsters aren't doing, because we learned today that poor mental health was the reason why young people risk languishing on benefits, with an extraordinary stat of how many are dropping out of work. And I mean, if you're seeing a situation where you've got over a million, where you've got youngsters who are opting not to work because it's too stressful, and you've got a quarter of them doing that, a quarter, I mean, we've got a problem.
Well, I think the pandemic seems to have changed fundamental attitudes to work among many people. You know, maybe spent months off work in 2020, lockdown, being paid furlough and so on. So this is rather nice. Just get paid to sit at home and watch Netflix and so on. And you know, come the end of the pandemic, didn't want to go back to work. And you know, it's this absurd situation now where you get a quarter of 18, 24-year-olds say they don't want to work, and yeah, employers are then you know, desperate for employees, and end up importing migrant labour to fill the jobs which should be filled by British people. And I mean, the benefit system here is utterly wrong. What we need is a system where you don't just hand out money to people to do nothing. You demand they turn up somewhere and do some work, otherwise they do not get any money. And the John Major's government actually did a trial of this back in about 1996. In Humberside and Kent, two groups of people on benefits were told, you know, you're not going to get any money unless you turn up for a compulsory work placement. And you know what? About a sort of third of the benefit claimants on those trials, they just stopped claiming. And you ask why? You know, probably they had jobs. They might not have been living in Britain. They might not have existed at all. And if we get, you know, we can return to that kind of experiment. Of course, you know, Tony Blair then got elected and the momentum was lost. But, you know, if we can repeat that sort of trial and have that sort of system where you don't get money unless you actually turn up somewhere and do some work, you know, we unless we get that, then the benefit system's just going to continue to mushroom.
Absolutely spot on. Listen, Ross, thank you very much indeed for that. And I really do resent the idea. That's Ross Clark, by the way, Sun columnist, always got big opinions on these things. And what he just said there at the end, I mean, why would that be controversial? Why would that upset Diane Abbott? Why would anybody on the left, or even some on the right for that matter, say, well, you can't say stuff like that? You know, we often hear these stats that, well, you know, if you tinker around the edge, it doesn't really save that much money. Doesn't save that much money. Let me give you those figures again. These are foreign nationals claiming universal credit in this country. 7.5 billion people, billion pounds, 7.5 billion that we know of. That's likely to increase because there's going to be 800,000 foreign nationals who are expected to receive indefinite leave to remain in the UK over the next decade. So seriously, we're expected to believe there's 800,000 people who are escaping tyranny that need protection in this country, and therefore We're going to look after those people, and if that means topping up their wages because they'll be in low-paid jobs, then so be it. And I was thinking back to that programme, which was called Go Back to Where You Came From, which featured Chloe Dobbs, one of our regular contributors, which was sort of kind of I don't know, sort of an experiment of sending people with certain political beliefs to areas like Syria where people do make that journey to come to the UK and elsewhere, and to sort of try and put yourself in their shoes, as it were. And it was quite fascinating. I didn't see all of it, but the bits I saw were fascinating. And some of the people that they spoke to weren't coming to sponge. That wasn't their intention, to sponge. One fella said he, back in, was it? I think it was Syria. He sold mobile phones for a living. So he wants to come to the UK and do the same thing. He's a perfectly honest guy. His name was Mohammed. He had no intention of, sponging off the... Probably didn't even know about the welfare system. OK? He'd escaped a terrible country. That in itself is not a reason to give somebody asylum, but it might be. But generally speaking, just because you don't like your government isn't a reason. Used to flog mobile phones, so essentially worked in car phone warehouse in Syria, if you like, and wanted to do similar when he came to the UK. Now, there's a great example of a guy who will probably need a top-up on his money. So if he makes his claim, says, hi, I've crossed over on a boat, I've come from Syria, it's a hellhole over there at the moment, I don't dispute any of that, whether his specific circumstances are enough to fit the bill, but even if they did, he would be given a top-up because he wouldn't have enough money to live on. Now, that is wrong. Why can we not call that out as being wrong? That is not what an asylum system is meant to do. It's not meant to be a la carte. We're not meant to be in a position where we are part of a choice that people could go to France, might go to Germany, Spain, see how it goes, because I want to change my life. I get it. I'd probably do the same if I was living in Syria or Eritrea or Iran or any of those godforsaken places where, I get it, life is a bit challenging. It's not a reason to claim asylum. And if you do try to claim it, the idea that you're then topped up with benefits is frankly obscene. It's an obscenity. This is other people's money. This is other people's money.